In 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to the Acker BBall podcast, week 2 for the A-Sun. This week, we're going to end up doing something a little bit different. We're going to do some biggest surprises and biggest kind of disappointments that we've had so far through these first 2 weeks. First off, we want to get this out of the way. North Florida is not an option for biggest surprise. We've talked about them a lot already. Also, they've fallen off a little bit since their hot start. But we automatically eliminated them. And we're going to try to cover some other teams here that we haven't talked about as much. Real quick, before we get into who we picked, the teams, honorable mention, both of these guys are from Bellarmine, the Knights. First off, horrible start to their season, 0-4. But Jack Karzinski, the guy that they got from William and Mary, who only averaged, it was 13% from 3 on 3.5 attempts. He's averaging 18 and almost a half points per game, and he's shooting 50% based on 4%, or on 4 attempts per night. The opposite spectrum of that is on the disappointment end is Ben Johnson. He's an all A-Sun preseason team member. He's only got 8.5 points per game after averaging nearly 14 last year. The shooting percentage is way down as well. He was expected to jump to that like 17 to 20 point range this year, but instead he's shooting 16.5% on 4.5 attempts a night after shooting 39 and 38% the first 2 years before at Bellarmine. So he's really, neither you and I, Dad, have seen Bellarmine play, but that is, obviously shocking to see. And it's like, where did that shot go? Is it just because he's taking bad attempts? Is he, in a different role now with Karzinski there, who seems to have taken the lead? Been pretty much the only bright spot in Bellarmine's basketball so far this season. So we'll have to watch them and definitely see just what the story is there.
I was going to ask you that, Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see was he playing less minutes, Ben Johnson, at this point, or than he did than last year? Or
no, he's playing the same amount of time. So I don't know what the issue is. He's been a key piece in their lineup. He was an expected part, as Luffy does stuff on my bed. I got 2 dogs, not just one. But no, it seems to be something's up with them, so we got to figure it out. That'll be our investigation for this week.
I got a quick Bellarmine story.
Yeah.
So I was telling a story this weekend. We're out with some friends about my former boss at one of my companies I worked at, and and it's a pretty funny story. You've heard it before. We can get into it a little bit more, but his name's Mr. Joe Clayton. I was on a flight out to California playing a card game called Euchre, which is kind of a Western New York or Ohio game. He was learning the game because he was the CEO and from the South and Texas and various places. But he was learning the game. We're on the plane, and so I'm beating him in this game, and he was getting really mad at me for doing it. Not mad at me. He was just mad because he was losing the game. Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to get help from his CFO. And the CFO was just staring out the window. He wanted nothing to do with me beating our boss. So it was, thankfully he didn't throw me out the plane. In fact, it was a great trip. We talked about it later, and it was a really cool experience. Well, anyway, so I was looking him up to see where he was at in his life, and it turns out he had passed away in 2018, I believe it was. And as I was researching him, where his background was, turns out he went to Bellarmine. For college, and there's a Joe Clayton scholarship fund in his name, obviously, at the university. Real nice stories and of students that have received the award and what they've been doing with their lives and thanking him, and what a generous and really genuine human being Joe Clayton was. So I had a brief moment with him, but it was just kind of neat to circle that back around there. So absolutely. I thought I'd just share real quick. So nice. It was pretty cool.
Good story.
I love researching those small world things that pop up. They're always fun to do.
Yes,
for me, they are. Because I know they are for you as well. Not just about X's and O's and stats.
No, but speaking of that, we're going to talk about a lot of X's and O's and stats.
That's it.
Coming up here. So let's go with our biggest surprises for the season. That we saw them play tonight They did not play nearly as well as they have been previously. But who'd you go with for your biggest surprise?
Yeah, so University of North Alabama, and I wouldn't necessarily call them a surprise in that I think both of us were expecting them, and even maybe the consensus was that they're going to be a pretty solid team. Got a good experience. Tony Pujols, 7th year as the coach, building a program. He's been the only D1 coach for UNA, and so I don't know. It was a big surprise. Jakari Lane leading the way, obviously, as if you've seen them, that guy's spectacular. I think, was he 6 foot tall or 6'1", but he is unbelievable inside, outside, quick player, and can shoot it from all angles, all positions, and is a very dominant player. So not surprised in that regard, but I think why I picked them is just kind of how they're playing. I think they've gelled early for having some kind of new pieces in there. They've really taken off, and their average margin of they're 3-1. Excuse me. Average margin of victory 24 points in their 3 wins. I know they haven't been against the strongest opponents, but still, that's pretty dominant for a mid-major team, right? And then the one loss that they had against Stanford over the weekend went to overtime. They were down by 20 points early in the second half, battled back, forced overtime, and ended up losing by 1 point.
Well, yeah, and Stanford's projected to be the top finisher in the SoCon this year.
Exactly, right. So a stronger team, much more a parity type of team with them, right? I think Stanford was even favored by 1 for the game, so it ended up right on the line. And UNA competed in that game without Dallas Howell, who hurt his knee the game before, and unfortunately hadn't been able to play the last couple. So that's kind of why I picked them as kind of my surprises. I think these guys are maybe stronger. Surprisingly, they're stronger, I think, than I was expecting. Some other information on them: 8 players are averaging over 6 points a game. So some nice depth of scoring, right? Jefferson, you've got a nice list of players that are contributing heavily to their success so far. Now, that said, I do a couple points. We did watch them play against Auburn tonight, who are just dominant. Oh my gosh, keep an eye on
March Madness favorite.
There's
March Madness favorite for sure.
They're just tremendous. One wave after another, just relentless play. They scored 102, I think is what it ended up, whatever it was.
Yes, 102-69 tonight.
Right. So one of the things they saw, I think that for North Alabama to continue, a couple of the stats, 68% free throw shooting to date, so not great. They really got to tighten that up. Again, as much as Jakari Lane, I lauded him a minute ago, he has the ball a lot, 4.2 assists per game, which is great. But he and the team have to be able to deliver at the stripe in order for them to really go long-term into the season, in my opinion. And then what was I going to? I lost my train of thought. But observations from tonight's game that I saw is they're a bit one-dimensional offensively. And again, it's against Auburn, so it's really maybe a little bit more difficult.
Right, and without Dallas Howell as well.
Yes, right. But maybe we can talk a little bit about their offense there. It seemed like I think you mentioned that during the game, they're kind of forcing a bit and looking for second and third score to really to balance the game. Lane, I think he had 13 at halftime or 14 at halftime. But there really wasn't a lot of secondary scoring from them. So
no,
see how they
Ortiz needs to shoot the ball better. He's been a 40% shooter in the past, and hasn't had. He went to UAB last year after being at North Alabama the previous 2 years. Was a 40% shooters last year at North Alabama from deep. Then also around 40 for just field goal percentage overall as well. Which isn't great, but 40% from 3 is really good. Then took a dip, going to UAB in the American Athletic, and dropping to about 33% in a bench role. Then he's come back here to UNA, and he was also a preseason All-A-Sun guy. He's been coming off the bench, and he's been shooting horribly so far. So he hasn't really found that touch yet. So that'd be the guy that I'd expect to step up with Dallas Howell out, and it kind of hasn't happened yet. So they need to have more. Cornelius Williams despite having a tough assignment tonight, he ended up, him and Jakari, Jonai Broom is just elite right now. But Jakari Lane and Cornelius Williams both won the ASUN Awards this week, the Player of the Week and the Newcomer of the Week. Lane averaged 27 points per game in 2 games this week, scoring 22 against UT Martin, and then he also had 32 against Samford. And then Williams, he averaged a double-double throughout the week. He was a double-double machine, 13 and 13. So, props to them for getting it done. They weren't able to bring that momentum into Auburn tonight, but obviously good things to show here against maybe the smaller conference teams, the mid-major teams. Definitely seem to be a contender.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And again, another one of those, for me, one of those stats, like free throw shooting's a big one, as I talked about, got to work on that. But turnovers is a big thing. They are averaging 11 a game, but their differential is +8. So their opponents are 19 for the first 4 games. So a fantastic differential there. Steals and assists to turnover ratio are actually positive. You look for that 1-to-1 relationship there. They're above that in both categories: assists to turnovers, steals to turnovers. And even tonight against Auburn, only 13 turnovers. So that's a pretty respectable number. I think they had 5 at halftime, and they got a little bit carried away in the second half. So when the game was still on the line, they only had 5 at half. So a sign of things that they can do long term. They really do work well together as a club. So look forward to watching them progress. Looking for the offense to kind of mature, and even though they have a lot of scores right now, but develop into some higher level of execution of play as they get into the conference play, and then obviously see where that goes beyond that.
Yeah.
So that's North Alabama. Anything else you want to add with them?
No, I'm all good. You care if I move on to my surprise, which is also...
Yeah, I was going to ask you to swing it back over to you. So yeah, what do you have for your surprise team?
Also, not really a surprise. So this team expected to finish towards the top, and they're off to a great start. The 2-1 EKU Colonels, they're one of 3 teams, including North Alabama and UNF, with at least 4 players getting double-digit scores a night. Those players are, 3 of them are transfers: George Kimball, the 3rd, Jordan Crawford, who's been coming off the bench for them in a great, 6-man role. Mayor Wool, Crawford and Wool are both transfers incoming from the College of Charleston. And then you got Devontae Blanton, who has looked like a potential candidate for, along with Jakari Lane, I would say ASUN Player of the Year potential here. He's been great. It is a small sample size though. So I had to go back because I hadn't seen EKU play yet, and I watched them play against ETSU today, the Buccaneers, which are projected to finish 3rd in the SoCon. So both Samford and them are both solid teams coming out of the SoCon this year. The team hustles. The team was up pretty much the entire game, and they kind of let it sneak. Like, they let ETSU sneak back, but they were on the road going. So you got to think about home crowd there. It's definitely hard to deal and keep a consistent lead when you're on the road. But they led the entire way pretty much. Did play against Alice Cooper as well, so they're actually 7th in the country right now in offensive rebounds, but they had over 20 against Alice Cooper, which is an NAIA team. So those numbers are a little like they only had 13 offensive rebounds in their games against ETSU and Clemson. So those numbers aren't inflated. You could think maybe the points per game is inflated as well, but the team also they have 6 guys over 6 points per game, and the next 2 were like at 4 or 5. So also good depth. They did end up dropping that one game against Clemson. They lost by 13, but A.W. Hamilton.
That's respectable though, right?
Yes, exactly. And we'll roll the sound here. A.W. Hamilton seemed to be content as well.
And I was proud of our group that we have. We got 9 new guys. We got 9 new guys and a superstar in Tay Blanton. He's pretty good, right, guys? He looked pretty good out there. But I love our group. We got a chance to have a really good basketball team, and we'll learn a lot from this game.
Yeah, so AW seems happy, and he probably should be. The reason I have them as a surprise, because I figured they were going to be in like the 5 to 6 range for skill.
Right.
Or not 5 to 6, but maybe like 6 to 3 would be more appropriate for where I kind of thought they might finish in the ASUN this year, but it's definitely looking more promising, and I'm basing that on the fact that he's been able to implement these incoming transfers into his system really well right off the bat. So I think this team's going to gel quickly, and I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. The ASUN's a good conference this year. It's a really good conference this year, and it's going to be tight. So I expect maybe like a 14-13 seed bid.
Yep. Agreed. I'm looking at the stats for Eastern Kentucky. It looks like they throw a lot of threes up, averaging 30 per game. Not the most, but certainly a big number.
Right.
Decent number. Not shooting great though. 29, just under 30% behind the arc there.
Oh, they had so many open looks against Clemson, and they made a lot of them. Clemson, excuse me, ETSU. Made a lot of them, missed a lot of them, but they were just, it was scary how commanding. They were up by 20 at one point against ETSU and let them creep back. They only won 82-78, I think was what the final score ended up being.
Okay.
But that, I think, to me shows that in those tight games where you're getting nipped at the heels, you're able to come up on top, which is something I can't say for my disappointment team. And that is the Lipscomb Bisons, who everyone thought, it was unanimous, this team's going to be the best team in the conference. They're leagues ahead of everyone, and it just hasn't been the case. Now, of course, they've been missing Kellen Boylan, who is the incoming transfer from the Mountain West Conference Air Force team that we've been talking about for a couple weeks now here. I completely forgot in my preseason research with him. So he tore his labrum, and he got surgery to repair it this offseason. Could have taken a medical redshirt, decided not to. He finally got in the other night against Western Kentucky and only played about 4 minutes. So he's not in game shape yet, clearly. The thing that scares me about Lipscomb is that it only generates 7 offensive rebounds a night, which is 351st in the country out of 363 teams, I think it is, something like that. So that's scary to me, which we've talked about. Their kind of lack of depth at the center spot was a big issue going into the season.
Right.
And I think their bigs do a great job of creating for themselves. Like Grant Osmond does a great job. Like he's big, but he can move, and you don't expect him to be able to. But the lack of ability to get those second chance points is nervous to me, and also as well. So they've been up big in games, like against Western Kentucky, and they let Western Kentucky come back. Same thing in Bellarmine. Bellarmine, they were up, they were down, up, they were down. They ended up losing by 1 point for the second year in a row, losing to Bellarmine. And I think the reason why this is happening is because it doesn't show on the stat sheet, because they're not committing that many turnovers. It's when they're committing their turnovers. They're committing a lot of them really early in the game, which can be somewhat expected because, you're trying to get a feel for the other team. But they're also committing some really crucial ones late in the game. And I think that's what's causing this team to lose games, and they got to clean that up. Otherwise, they're not gonna be that top seed anymore. Right. I wouldn't expect it at this point. I think there's other teams that have been better.
Right. The other thing, the stats for me that kind of come out in my eye is, you mentioned the offensive rebounding, but they're getting out-rebounded 4.2 rebounds per game. Where's the physicality with this team? Why are they not dominating the inside? I know we talked about that, but it's rebounding is a five-man effort, right? Everybody's got to rebound. Obviously, if you have a big guy that can get 10, 12, whatever it might be a game, that's another thing. But most teams, you need all 5 to rebound and contribute to the balance. If getting out rebounded by 4 isn't ridiculous, but it's a sign that there's an element of the game of tenacity, drive, commitment for each other that maybe is not quite there at this point. Maybe they're thinking a bit. I also noticed they're taking 57 shots a game, 15 free throws a game. That's a pretty low number.
Yes.
When compared to other teams. And obviously this earlier, some of the stats can be skewed, but again, another sign where they're not playing maybe not with as much confidence as you might want to think of the team could. That's definitely one that was expected to be top of the board.
Right, and yeah, your disappointment, Dad, is kind of the opposite of that. Lots of players that are incoming that weren't on the team last year. Not a lot of seniors on this team. Very young team. So your disappointment team is who?
I picked Stetson Hatters. Kind of like you said, they've got some players coming in with good statistics from where they came in from. We're not seeing a whole lot of transition, that translating, at least to this point. Again, through 4 games, as far as statistically goes. Now, red star and asterisk on this one. I have not actually seen Stetson play, so I'm going mostly off, or really, almost all off of stats. What I'm reading there, but when you look at a 1-3 start, and they're not playing knockout teams here, it kind of tells you that they haven't really come together yet. Obviously, there's still hope for that to happen, but it's so far kind of a soft start. Citadel lost by 22 to Citadel, who's ranked 320, KenPom, right? They lost to Oklahoma by 21. That was expected. And their one win was against kind of a non-Division I team. I forget who it was off the top of my head here, but and even Nebraska, Oklahoma, they lost by 3. But they're also down in at least in the KenPom rankings. So kind of those are average 15 point loss per game.
Oh yeah, the 3-point loss to Omaha, and then New College, Florida is who they ended up being, which is a respectable Division II team, but not.
But they're still deep.
And they were down. They went for in the first half. They were losing after the first half against that team.
Wow. But yeah, and a couple. So again, more stats here. 60% free throw shooting so far. Early, but still, that's a really low number. Only made 6.8 3-pointers per game. Again, and 29% for 29% of their threes that they've taken. So again, a low number, just like we were talking about before with who was that with Lipscomb, right?
Yeah.
Low 3-point shooting percentage. And then another stat on the defensive end, they're not generating anything. 10 turnovers by their opponents per game, and 6 steals per game, 6.3 steals per game. Despite they're not committing fouls, so 11 fouls on average per game. That's the lowest in the A-Sun so far. But even though they're not fouling, they're not creating any chaos for their opponents as represented by the 10 turnovers, 6.3 steals. So I got to start watching them to kind of see where they're at. I'd like, obviously, for every team, we want to see them develop and grow and be as best they can be. But those are just some stats to me that jumped out. A couple players. No. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say give it time because this team's gonna gel. I have a little bit of a bias because I picked them to be my number 2 in the preseason rankings that we had. But give them time. It's gonna happen. But
exactly.
Yeah, a couple incoming transfers that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, John Massey came from Wingate, right? That's D2, right? Wingate. He came in with high credentials. Again, offensively, he's averaging 6 points per game, or 8 points per game. Excuse me. And then Mekhi Ellison 6.8 points per game.
That's the guy I thought was going to be really good. I thought he averaged like 28 points in JUCO D2, and I was like, that guy's he's gonna be something sick.
Exactly. I was just going to mention exactly that, right? So, and in lower minutes as well per game. So maybe again, just like you had mentioned, taking time to gel into the system, to the speed of the play and the level of play that that D1 offers from where he was last year. So, So no
get
hats off the Hatters yet, but we'll keep the faith that they can grow and build into it.
Yeah, we better keep the faith. Anyway, let's move into tonight's games. So we already talked about the 9 o'clock game, North Alabama versus Auburn. And then UNC Asheville pulled up the upset against North Florida. So both teams that are 3-1 in this conference fall to 3-2. Side note, Oscar Berry scored a point tonight, finally, for UNC. Yes, two points tonight. Dad, I didn't get to watch this game at all. Were you watching? It seemed like you were watching it maybe towards the end there, because
I caught a bit of it at the end. Yeah, exactly. And at that point, they were kind of pressing. North Florida was pressing a bit on the offensive end. So they're taking little gambles on defense, and they were pressing on offense, kind of throwing the balls up because they were down by, I think, 10 or 12 when I turned it on. And they just weren't making anything.
So live by the 3, die by the 3. That's Driscoll's motto.
We said that about them. We said them about that earlier, and also we watched them be very one-dimensional. We talked about a little bit with UNA here about their sophistication or lack of sophistication of offense. North Florida has that too, where they do a lot of one-on-one. They spread the floor, try to drive and score, or maybe a sliding kick. But that's really the level of offense that they've focused on so far for the year. And, like you said, they're subject to runs up and down. When they're cold, it's going to show that you're kind of one and done kind of stuff. So, I didn't see a whole lot to really put a lot of analysis into it. But, and then 89 points against. So you got to, that was another point too, right?
We've been talking about their defense for a while. Their defense, they're just not good defensively.
They do not gap well on defense. They don't help well and recover as a unit. Right?
Give up way too many open threes too.
What's that?
Give up way too many open threes, and that's because they're not good at sliding and transitioning from deep assignment to de-assignment. Just doesn't happen.
Right, and I don't think it's a lack of athleticism or even compete level, because I think they compete reasonably well overall. But to me, defense is all about commitment. It's like rebounding. You just gotta want it better than the other guy to a certain degree. Obviously, there's technique and certain physical skills too. But to me, they've got a long ways to go on the defensive end to counter those periods of time when they're not shooting, when they're not knocking down the shots, right? And we all know that's going to happen. But defense, in theory, you can be more consistent at just through that, partly through that commitment.
I agree.
So that's their focus point for my mind.
They're not really highlighted at all on the upcoming games that we got for the week here at UNF, but we did talk about Stetson. They're going to play against Toledo on Thursday.
Right.
And, Florida Gulf Coast still surprisingly doesn't have a win, despite being a really good defensive team. They're just not a great offensive team. Another team that I'd like to be able to watch a little bit more, because I'm only getting to see bits and pieces of them so far. A little bit against TCU, and then in their last game that they played, Kellerman was pretty good when I was watching. He's looking good so far, but but then
he's it though, right? On the offensive end, Kellerman's really
for now. There should be some other guys that pitch in once they
absolutely
get a little bit more gelled together. As I said, I thought this team was going to be the scariest starting 5 in all of the conference, and they have not been so far. They've been great on defense, not great on offense. There's a couple other games that are pretty good this week, Dad. What are those other games that you noticed?
So tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. On ESPN2, Queens. We haven't really talked much about Queens. They're at Appalachian State. Appalachian's 1-2 for now, so I don't know that they're big, a tough competition in that regard. But I just thought, we got to throw some Queens action out here and kind of see where they're going. I know you were high on some of their the Queens team preseason. So
the guy that I was high on hasn't played. He has not played. But he was also a walk-on. So he's probably gonna redshirt this year, and then I said in like 2-3 years time, if he stays, he's probably gonna be leading the leading the entire conference in points per game. I think one thing about Queens is I think they're a surprising 2-2 team. but not in a good way. I think that like they only have one guy on their team. I was looking at them today a little bit. I don't remember who it was, but they only have one person on their team that's averaging over 10 points per game.
Okay.
So that definitely makes me nervous for this Queens team moving forward.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to point them out. They're.
Oh yeah.
I think they're
absolutely
maybe kind of onward swing of things, even though they're a new thing. Another game I highlighted Wednesday, 7 p.m. again on ESPN Plus. Jacksonville, really strong rebounding team, defensive-minded team.
Robert McCray is probably the best player in the conference.
Yes, exactly. He had an off game last game, but
he was in the 20s both before that, though.
Exactly, right. But they're at Virginia Tech, so that might be a really good test for them early. See if how they can compete physically against the higher, generally a pretty good school, Virginia Tech.
Yeah,
they play some pretty good ball. And then same thing Wednesday, Austin Peay at Morehead State, 7 p.m. ESPN Plus. Also, I put some question marks. There wasn't really necessarily an intriguing matchup per se. I just wanted to highlight.
Austin Peay is just fun to watch. They're just fun to. They're the way Corey Gibson coaches and the fact that he's in his military garb every single time when he's coaching on the sideline, and just the defensive skill that Austin Peay has that translates to offense. They're my new favorite coming into they're without a doubt my favorite as of how I've gotten to see them play twice. They played good ball both times, even though they weren't both wins. I like this team.
Great, nice. And then I didn't write them down, but Sunday there's 5 games on Sunday of and again they're not conference play obviously, but there's 5 games Sunday coming up. So if you're bored of NFL football on Sunday or whatever else you might do on Sunday, you got Thanksgiving coming up. You're gonna get your fill there. There's lots of action to watch in the ASUN Conference Sunday. So, but also get out of the house.
Yes. All right, let's move on to Acorn's Attic here. So, what'd you bring for us this week, Dad? Because you and I talked.
Well, I thought what might be fitting. I'm assuming 60-some million households watched it, and it made me think about this concept. It was watching it, meaning watching the Tyson Paul boxing match on Friday night. But just think about promoting yourself. And what I mean by that is finding balance. So that fight to me highlighted where you can over promote yourself and get yourself. For me, anyways, and maybe a lot of people I talk to is that fight was just a throw. Right? Everybody threw it away, and you lose credibility with that, for my mind. So really, I think the message I wanted to send today was when you promote yourself, I think it's hugely important to promote yourself. Whatever you're doing, you've got to feel good about it, but let people know what's going on in your world to get where you want to be, whatever that is, right? But you have to do it properly. Do research about what you're doing. Ask questions to validate your thoughts. For one, read up on your topic, right? If you think you have a good idea in your head, doesn't mean that it's a good idea outside of your head. So aside from asking people, hey, what do you think about this? Research it too. The internet's full of garbage, but it's also full of great information. And it's not just there. Reading books. You may find a book about something that you have a topic of whatever your topic of interest is, right? And then the third piece of this, to me, when you're promoting yourself, supporting it properly, is to obtain and really understand data to support your position about that thing.
Oh, here comes the engineer out in you.
Yes, it is. That's right. And it's the scientific method in me. It was pounded into my head. But no, it's really what it is, right? You can say all you want, but if you have no data to support it, even if you're, manipulating or optimizing, let's call it, the data that you're supporting, without that, for me, is the way analytical I am. The arguments generally fall apart if you don't have anything behind it.
So I could say West Georgia's the best team in the ASUN and be complete. But I wouldn't have,
absolutely,
and I wouldn't have anything to back it up. I would have
That's
nothing.
Right.
No, they're struggling. So, we'll have to talk about that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so that's the message I wanted. And I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe a challenge. I'll do it for myself and anybody out there that's listening. Find a subject this week and think about how you can promote that thing for yourself better. To the people around you or the things around you want to go, and maybe try to follow some of those tips.
Right. I think we all are guilty of this. Kind of promoting I think it's just a lot of ego that causes us to promote ourselves maybe in a higher light than what we should or what is accurate. And that it's ego and arrogance is what it boils down to. And the Bible verses that I brought for us this week are all about arrogance. So Proverbs 8:13, which was this part of Proverbs was written by King David, who's quote unquote one of the man that was after God's heart. And it's the fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance, and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. So basically saying, you hype yourself up a little bit more than you should. It's false. You're just doing it so that way you can look good. And I don't like those type of people. I don't want to be around those type of people. And God doesn't like those type of people. Like he doesn't like that action in people. He still loves you regardless, but doesn't like that action in people. Another one is the first book of Samuel 2:3, as I just got an email. But it's talk no more so very proudly, let not arrogance come from your mouth, for the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. So basically saying you're not here to prove, because that's another reason why I think we fall into this pitfall too, of maybe promoting yourself a little bit better than you should, is that you want to look good for others. You want to, it's not only so that way you can feel good or better about yourself, it's so that way you can feel good to others or look good to others. And we're not meant to prove things to others. Like, your actions will prove things to others, and God also knows your true motives behind things. So just think about that.
I think it's a great message the way you just said that there. Obviously, and you can that social media, unfortunately, the way it's used kind of feeds against that ideal right there, right, of letting your actions speak for yourself as opposed to your words or your headline words that you throw at somebody or throw out there for the world to see and read and interpret. So lots of people have said this, just whatever you're doing on social media, watch what you say, and not just watch what you say, think about what you're saying and how it may impact the world. Again, if you're promoting yourself, or you're not, but your words can mean stuff, so make them meaningful. You get one shot at it. Make any word you write in social media or anywhere, any conversation, make it meaningful.
Absolutely.
Right? Really to people. That. To me, this is the way.
I really like that.
Yep.
And then the last one that I got here, because we always bring three, is Romans 12:3. So this is when Paul was on his journey, and this is what he wrote in Romans. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. So basically saying that you have a role that God has assigned you here on earth. And that takes a long time to figure out. That not everyone wakes up and knows that right off the bat. But I wouldn't really take this as a stay in your lane type of thing. It's just more like, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't go beyond your ability in trying to do something that maybe you offer, but you can't actually do. Like, push yourself, yes, but also don't say stuff just because you want to look good. Say stuff. Right. Say and this can even come when it comes to arguments, stances on things in life. Like, don't just say something to please the crowd in the room. Say what is correct to you and move forward with that regardless of, and stand by that regardless of maybe social pressures that come to you. That's really
right. Be true to yourself. Is that kind of what you're saying a little bit too?
Yeah, like I think to think with sober judgment to me means don't let outside factors and outside influences on you affect what is in your heart.
Right.
That's what that.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. And I think that again ties back to the whole point of the Acorn's Attic about promoting yourself and kind of knowing how far to take that promotion, self-promotion, or of an idea or a selfish thing, or not a selfish thing, but an individual goal for yourself. Just stay within those bounds, as you said. You'll find your way through reaction. But you gotta be honest with yourself. Read feedback as well as when you're putting your message out. Don't be blind to the noise coming back or to what's coming back at you.
Right. It's not wrong to have goals at all. What's wrong is falsifying your success in those goals.
Right. Exactly. Great message.
Yes. Great Acorn's Attic topic to bring up, Dad. You always come through with a great one. But that is going to wrap up our week 2 episode of Accurate Basketball. Until next time, God bless. Take care. Looking forward to hearing from you again.
Bye, everybody.